Breaking news, you're looking at video of one of the last times Oscar winner Gene Hackman, a known recluse in recent years, was seen in public.
I don't have a lot of fears. I have the normal fear of passing away.
You know, this is where the dead come to teach the living. The bodies may tell us more than the scene. It's probably gonna have to come.
Deep beneath Gene Hackman's sprawling estate, hidden inside an underground tunnel, the FBI just discovered something that completely flipped everything. We thought we knew his last will. But this isn't just any legal document, it is a shocking revelation about his final days. The question is, why was it hidden, and who was trying to keep this document a secret all along? As the FBI examined the document, new mysteries began to surface. The names listed as errors, the exact timing of his death, and the eerie 7-day gap between him and his wife's passing all point to something far more disturbing. And the truth is only beginning to unravel.
Incredible new details this hour about the circumstances surrounding his death. His front door open, scattered pills on the bathroom countertop, one dog dead in the closet, 2 still alive on the property. 95-year-old Hackman and his wife, a 63-year-old classical pianist, their German Shepherd dog, all of them tonight mysteriously dead. And police right now are ruling out a carbon monoxide leak. This frantic 911 call captured the moment they were found.
Are they moving at all?
No, they're not moving. Just send somebody out here really quick.
Okay, my units are on their way, okay?
So Josh Kimball is there, outside Hackman's Santa Fe.
Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa lived together for over 3 decades, when news broke that they had passed away just days apart. It seemed like a tragic but natural end to a long love story. But when the FBI examined the timeline, something felt off. Under New Mexico law. If 2 people die within 5 days of each other, their assets might be divided differently. But Hackman outlived Betsy by exactly 7 days, just 2 days beyond that critical limit. That tiny difference completely changed how his fortune was handled.
So Josh Kimball is there, outside Hackman's Santa Fe home right now, with more of the stunning details surrounding these deaths.
About that.
Tonight, an investigation is underway into the death of 2-time Oscar winner Gene Hackman.
They're going to work this case. They're going to look at every aspect and try to figure out the exact cause. And I think the autopsy is going to be key, and the toxicology. But again, in my experience, that could take a while.
The 95-year-old Hollywood icon was found dead Wednesday inside his New Mexico home, along with his 65-year-old wife, Betsy Arakawa, and a dog, according to officials. Circumstances which the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office called suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search. And
Hackman's will named Betsy as the prime heir. If she had lived longer, she would have inherited everything. But because she died first, the will's secondary terms took effect. This meant the estate was passed down differently than originally planned. The question was, did Hackman actually survive for those full 7 days, or was the timeline manipulated to shift control of his wealth? What made this even stranger was Hackman's deteriorating condition. He had advanced Alzheimer's, meaning his ability to make decisions was questionable. And investigators started to wonder if someone had taken advantage of his failing memory investigation.
It's concerning that everyone in the house, including the dog.
As the FBI dug deeper, more red flags surfaced. Financial records showed unusual activity, withdrawals that couldn't be explained, and transactions that didn't make sense. Then, when agents searched Hackman's home, they made a discovery that changed everything. A hidden underground tunnel that led them straight to something no one expected. Rumors had always swirled about a secret tunnel beneath Hackman's New Mexico estate. It was originally designed for storage, a private space he rarely spoke about. But when FBI investigators followed a lead, they stumbled upon something that sent shockwaves through the case. Buried deep within the tunnel, hidden beneath layers of dust and old belongings, was a wooden box. Inside that box, perfectly preserved, was a sealed envelope containing Hackman's last will. The appearance of this document raised disturbing questions. Why was it hidden? And more importantly, why did its contents not match the official will found in Hackman's home? The will listed different heirs than the one that had been legally recognized. One name in particular stood out, someone who had never been officially linked to Hackman before. Was this an old will that had been deliberately concealed? Or was it his true, final testament? And if it was real, who had tried to keep it from ever being found? Legal EXP experts immediately understood the implications. If this will was legitimate, it could completely change the way Hackman's fortune was distributed. It would mean that the current heirs were never meant to receive his estate, and that someone had gone to great lengths to bury this truth.
And here in Santa Fe, Sheriff's Department officials who are working behind me have yet another high-profile death case on their hands. Aaron, you and I covered at length the Alec Baldwin case, that fatal shooting on the set of the movie Rust. This is the same investigative team that worked that case. Now, we did get some new information tonight from sheriff's officials. We're told that an autopsy has been conducted on both Hackman as well as his wife. They say that initial findings note no external trauma to either individual. They say that carbon monoxide toxicology reports have been requested. Finally, as sheriff's officials gather information, it's worth pointing out that this could take weeks or months before we know exactly what the cause of death is.
As the FBI continued their investigation, the puzzle only deepened if this document had been intentionally hidden. What else had been covered up? And was there someone out there who had been desperately trying to keep the truth from coming to light? At first, the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa seemed like a heartbreaking coincidence. A devoted couple passing away just days apart. It sounded like the tragic end of a lifelong love story. But as investigators pieced together the timeline, they noticed something that raised serious questions. New Mexico. Law has a specific rule regarding inheritance. If two people die within 5 days of each other, their assets are handled differently. But Hackman's death came exactly 7 days after Betsy's, just 2 days beyond that crucial window. That meant everything. And his will followed a different legal path than if they had passed within the shorter time frame.
More now on our breaking news about the mysterious circumstances surrounding the deaths of legendary film actor Gene Hackman, his wife, and a dog that authorities have called suspicious, including the reported condition of Hackman's and his wife's bodies and what an affidavit calls mummification in both hands and feet. Joining us is our Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst, John Miller, and also Dr. Judy Melanek, forensic pathologist and author. John, what stands out to you about this? You've seen a lot of crime scenes.
Well, it's all that it tells us and all that it refuses to tell us. A lot of questions to answer, but you have Gene Hackman, who is in the mudroom off the kitchen by the back door.
Originally, Hackman's estate was meant to go to Betsy. If she had lived longer, she would have inherited everything. But because she died first, the will's alternate terms were activated. Sending his fortune elsewhere, the timing couldn't have been more convenient for certain beneficiaries. The most unsettling part was Hackman's deteriorating mental state. He had advanced Alzheimer's, making it unclear whether he truly understood what was happening. Could he have survived 7 days alone, in the house without help, or did someone manipulate the timeline of events to shift the way his estate was distributed? Investigators knew that proving foul play would be difficult. But when they compared the wheels found in his home and in the tunnel, the differences raised even more suspicions. And that was when the legal battle over Hackman's fortune truly began. The moment the hidden will surfaced, everything changed. The legal team handling Hackman's estate had been preparing for a standard process, but now they faced a fight that could take years to settle. The question at the center of the case was simple. Was the will found in Hackman's home the real one? Or was the document hidden in the tunnel his true final wish?
Appears to have taken a fall.
A cane was found nearby.
And a pair of sunglasses. It looks like he fell where he was and he dropped what he had. You have his wife, Betsy, in a bathroom on the other side of that floor where there are pills scattered on the counter and a space heater that's been knocked over, and a dog in a kennel or a crate that's also deceased. And, it's the kind of thing where you could say murder-suicide, but it doesn't appear to have the trauma that would go with murder. You could say a joint suicide, but those things usually come with somewhat of a ritual where people will take an overdose,
Hackman's daughters were named as heirs in both versions, but the second will contained unexpected names. People no one had ever associated with the legend. Legendary actor, a caregiver, a distant relative, and a charity he had never publicly supported were all included. If the tunnel was real, it meant the estate would be split in a completely different way. Then there was the issue of Hackman's mental state. By the time of his death, his Alzheimer's had advanced to the point where he struggled with daily tasks. His ability to make legal decisions was highly questionable. If he had signed the second will while already suffering from severe cognitive decline, was it even valid?
Bed together or hold hands sitting down.
You could also have an accident and a suicide.
You could have an accident and somebody saying, well, I don't want to live without him. But you have all those possibilities. And as Judy will tell us, there's a Latin saying in the medical examiner's office that says, this is where the dead come to teach the living. The bodies may tell us more than the scene. It's probably going to have to come together to come to one answer.
Well, Dr. Melinek, what does their bodies apparently being partially mummified? How long does that actually take? I guess if it's hands and feet. What does that actually mean?
So the extremities can mummify relatively.
Lawyers representing different sides began preparing their arguments. Some claimed the hidden will had been deliberately suppressed. Others argued Hackman had been too mentally impaired to draft a new one. The stakes were enormous in $80 million estate, a mysterious 7-day gap, and a document that had the power to change everything. The discovery of the hidden will had already turned Gene Hackman's estate case into a tangled mess. But the investigation didn't stop there. As the FBI dug deeper, more troubling details surfaced. Details that suggested there was more to Hackman's final days than anyone had realized. One of the biggest red flags came from Hackman's financial records in the 6 months leading up to his death. He had made several large cash withdrawals, including one for $250,000. Just weeks before Betsy's passing, there were no clear explanations for where the money went, or why Hackman, a man who had lived a quiet life away from Hollywood, suddenly needed such large sums. Then there was the issue of communication. FBI agents seized 2 phones from Hackman's home, one in the bedroom and another in his study. When they checked Betsy's phone, they found a chilling, unsent message from the day before she died in it. She wrote that something was wrong, that things were getting worse, and that she wasn't sure if she could handle it anymore. Hackman's phone also revealed something strange the day after Betsy's death. He got a 2-minute phone call from an unknown number. No one knew who had called him or what was said, but after that, Hackman never used his phone again.
I don't want to get into too many details, but when the authorities use the term mummification or mummified, does that just mean liquid that it's just like skin and bones at that point, or what happens?
It means that the skin has dried. So what's happened is it's wrinkled up and it's dried, and it could be anything from kind of a leathery change all the way to the point that it's so hard that you can't even cut through it easily with a scalpel. So sometimes it just looks a little bit leathery, and that'll be called mummified as well. So it still just gives us a ballpark.
And that takes days.
We would need to know more information about the condition of that. Can take, definitely, it usually takes.
With unanswered questions piling up, investigators knew one thing. Whatever had happened in Hackman's final days, it wasn't as simple as it seemed. Gene Hackman's final days were filled with uncertainty, but one thing stood out. Above all else, the mysterious 7-day gap between his death and Betsy's. This wasn't just an unusual coincidence, it was the key to everything. If Hackman had been suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, how did he survive for a full week alone in the house? Medical reports suggested that in those days he hadn't eaten, hadn't called for help, and hadn't even left the mansion. It was as if he was simply waiting for something.
Happens in hours. It's multiple days, probably even weeks.
John, the door was ajar. I guess an exterminator or a caretaker came and found it that way, alerted the local security. There was a dog who was alive in the house, and a dog also that belonged to them who was outside the house.
Right, but the door being ajar means, what Judy describes, which is they could have been there 10 days or 2 weeks, meant that the dogs could have had access to come in and out of that doorway. They might have had access to food and to water, whereas the dog that was in the crate, assuming the crate was closed, wouldn't have had that and would have passed away during that time. The door being ajar, of course, raises other questions. Was someone else inside the house? Had someone discovered that?
Or someone. Then there was the matter of his beloved dog. One of Hackman and Betsy's 3 dogs was found dead in its crate, showing signs of severe dehydration. This meant that no one had been feeding or taking care of the animals. But if Hackman had been completely alone, wouldn't all 3 dogs have suffered the same fate? The FBI even took the unusual step of conducting an autopsy on the dog, hoping to find answers.
So that means they've got to go in every direction. They have to eliminate everything that it could be to find out what it is. Some of that will be in the autopsy, Some of that will be in the advanced stages of the toxicology, which could take 3 or 4 weeks or longer. But a lot of that's going to be what's in their computers, what was in their mindset, were their communications with other normal, did they go to a physician, did somebody get a diagnosis that was very bad that would have influenced that if one died, the other would go too. There's so many questions to answer right now from a confusing crime scene and for what it lacks.
With every new discovery, the mystery deepens. Who made that last phone call to Hackman? Why did Betsy's unsent message sound like a desperate warning? Was there someone else pulling the strings all along? And most importantly, why was Hackman's hidden in an underground tunnel? Kindly let us know what you think in the comments below, and don't hesitate to like and subscribe for more movies.